Welcome back, my friends, to 4Strategy Gaming. I've got a Terran strategy for you today. This, yes, will be a Terran strategy video. This is in particular a TvZ, so a good tactic against a Zerg opponent. What we will be looking at specifically is going for very heavy early game Hellions. Now let me talk to you about how a lot of games are playing out. You'll see a lot of this type of thing. A lot of openings that you're going to see from Terran players against a Zerg opponent are some sort of a 2-racks Marine push if you're in close position or if you think they're fast expanding and you want to do some pressure. But another very popular tactic is to actually go for an initial 4 to 8 Hellions and just contain the Zerg opponent. And then with that contain, it buys you time to get an expansion and to go ahead and, you know, tech up, move your way into the probable build of Marine tank. So, with that said, one of those popular builds that I mentioned was going with 4 to 8 initial Hellions and then transitioning. Now, Zerg players will know this if they play often enough. So, you know, if they're up on the metagame, they'll be aware of this. What's going to happen in this game is Puma does move out with those initial 4 to 8 Hellions for that contain. However, instead of transitioning into a mid to late game build of Marine tank, he then gets out another factory and just masses up Hellions. Now the Zerg player, expecting just a normal small amount of Hellion contain, doesn't prepare for mass Hellions. And then when Puma pushes out with mass Hellions, that's pretty much the GG. He's able to just destroy the Zerg opponent's economy and right off the bat win the game. So let me go ahead and slow this down because I do want to talk about this opening build order first and foremost. Starting things off with the standard 10 depot. Now this is, from this point forward, where it gets a little bit off keel. We're going to actually go for a 12 Refinery and a 13 Barracks as opposed to a 12 Barracks and 13 Refinery. Now in doing this and getting that Refinery right before that Racks, that gives you just enough Vespene gas to go ahead and get that factory as soon as that Racks finishes. So at 16 supply there was again it was 12 Refinery, 13 Barracks, and then at 16 supply the Orbital Command, also the factory coming at 16 supply. Pretty much once that Barracks finishes you can afford that because you did get that early Refinery. Then 18 supply you saw the Reactor get placed on the Barracks, and that allowed for the hot swap there, putting that factory right down to that Reactor the second that it finished building on that Barracks. Starting off with those first 2 Hellions, he's going to move out a little bit, do a little bit of damage, but then once that Reactor is building at 21 supply, you start getting the expansion, because again, this is pretty much, again, pretty standard stuff, opening up with just a few Hellions and getting a little bit of map control, getting a little bit of contain. But from this point forward is where it gets messed up at 20, or not messed up, but altered. At 27 supply, Puma comes out with a second factory, and then also starts building another Reactor on that Barracks, and that again will allow for the hot swap. So right now, as far as July Zerg is concerned, this is just a small, normal early game Hellion harass and map control type of contain. But once more, instead of transitioning into the Marine tank build, we just see Puma get that second factory and mass up a lot of Hellions. Now with this, once he gets that strong amount of Hellions, he's just able to completely overwhelm July. Because again, July is just expecting this small type of map control and contain, nothing more. And that's, a lot of times, this is what you'll see a lot of Terran players do. They'll have, like, again, 4 to 8 Hellions. They'll just move around. They'll make sure the Zerg player stays in his base. They'll make sure he doesn't get any scouting. And this buys them time to get their expand and move up to, once more, Marine tank. I know I keep saying the same thing, but it's important to realize why this is effective. It's effective because the Zerg player expects one thing, which is the standard, but you actually deliver on another and you're able to overwhelm them early on. Because we're going to pause momentarily and take a look. So right now, July is he's going ahead and doing pretty much everything that he would be doing against just a normal Hellion contain. He's getting a few Zerglings, yeah, but he's not overwhelming. He's not getting a Roach Warren because he's not expecting mass Hellions. And he's teching up to his lair, doing everything like that. We can see the Baneling Nest, and I believe he also comes out with that Evolution Chamber as well. So he's playing pretty standard against the normal Hellion contain. But now that the second factory is out, Puma with 2 Reactors on those 2 factories able to just mass them up. And taking a look right now, you can see 11 Hellions. And at this point, we are going to see Puma push in. And this is where he's able to just completely overwhelm his opponent and win the game. And just continuing up that production is also transitioning, just in case, you know, this isn't guaranteed to win the game, although it does in this particular game. A push like this is not guaranteed to win you the game, so you do want to prepare for that transition. Let me do the quick pause just to show you. So all the while, he's got a tech lab coming on this Racks. This will be to start the combat shield and stim pack upgrade. Second Racks coming out as well, and then eventually he would do a hot swap, getting a Racks and a Reactor for the double Marine, and then getting a factory on a tech lab to start up the tank production. And then also, as I mentioned, getting that expansion built in your main base, a 21 supply. Once you initially push out with your first 2 Hellions, that allows you to get up that quick expansion as well. So take a look at what's happening right now. Puma's inside of the main base of July. He's doing tremendous economic damage, and on top of that, he's got an expansion running. So obviously in a very, very strong position. So just keep up playing here. There's 2 things to focus on. Queens, you got to be careful because they, you know, although with 11 Hellions you'll be able to take them out, it still takes a little while. So when you move in with the Hellions, you stay away from spine crawlers. Your primary goal, take out any threats. You want to kill the Zerglings first, and then you want to hurt the economy. Killing the drone count is one of the #1 things you can do. But again, obviously, remove any threat first. If you're getting surrounded by Zerglings, you need to kill those. But then you're going straight for that econ. You're trying to kill those drones. That's really the most important thing. Now we are actually going to see ST July called a good game at this point just because he's taken such heavy economic loss. And what I want to do is I do want to talk to you guys about, you know, what if this situation was different? A question is going to be, okay, Forrest, well, what if he goes roaches? And, you know, obviously if he had roaches in his main base, it would be a little bit more difficult. Well, there's 2 things that's going to happen. Either if he does end up going roaches in anticipation of some sort of a Hellion push, your Hellions are that much faster, so much faster than those roaches. You're able to stay away from them. As long as you're paying enough attention to your army and you're not just throwing them, you're not moving them into his base. As long as you're paying attention to the Hellions, you can easily avoid the roaches. The next question is, what about a counterattack? Well, let me say this. A player cannot effectively counterattack and effectively defend against a strong Hellion push at the same time. They do one or the other. So let's say they counterattack. Let's say you see roaches moving out across the map towards your base. The immediate response, throw down some bunkers, okay? Start pumping out those Marines. He would have swapped the barracks onto those reactors. He would have started pumping out Marines, building bunkers, and then putting the factories on the tech labs to build some tanks. He's obviously doing this because, you know, were a roach counter push coming, he would need Marines in the bunkers and tanks. That would be kind of an effective measure. That early on in the game, that would be kind of the best response. And then you're going to say, what if he stays in base to defend himself? Well, that's fine. If he keeps roaches sitting in his base, he's not moving out to his 3rd expansion because you've got the Hellions containing him. If he tries to push out with his roaches, even a little bit, you can bypass them, walk right up into the main and natural, and just tear through his economy. Remember, those roaches are going to be very slow, especially this early on in the game. This big Hellion push is coming before the 10-minute in-game mark. It's not likely that he would have just gone straight for roach speed or something like that, have his layer and his roach speed finished by the time that this push came from TSL's Puma. So that's why it can be effective. Realize, always respond, scout your opponent, figure out what they're doing. But this early super heavy Hellion push can be very, very strong, and certainly something I would suggest trying out. So let me go once more over that build order. We saw the 10 depot, 12 refinery, 13 barracks, 16 was the orbital command, 16 was also that factory. The second the barracks finished, because we got that early refinery, you're able to drop that factory right away. 18 supply, you start building that reactor right on the racks so you can swap them out once the factory finishes. 21 supply, the command center started building in the base. That's also when those first 2 Hellions were coming out. Use those to get map control, grab the towers, and then start that little bit of a mini contain outside of the front of his base. And then 27 supply, we saw a second factory, and then that Racks that had built the first reactor builds the second reactor while that second factory is building. And then that once more allows you to do that hot swap and get that factory, the second factory on that reactor right away. Only show them your initial 4 or so Hellions. Don't show them the bulk of your force. And then once you're ready to push, again, we saw Puma move in with 11 Hellions. Once you are ready for that push, bring everyone right on up and move right on in. Remember, take out any Zerglings first, then go straight for the economy. If he does have roaches, you can easily stay away from them. Just make sure you're paying enough attention. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed this Terran strategy video. We'll be trying to come out with a Protoss strategy and some commentary as well. Also had that live Diablo cast earlier in the day if that game interests you. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, guys, keep watching and keep owning.